Hello future tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
Because if you have started something and if I have saved something as a draft, I can see it in manage pending har. Let me check that if something which we have already created and we have saved it, we don't have to create from scratch. On. But wherever we have left from there onwards, we can start. Let me scroll down and see if we can recollect any name which you are trying to create it. You can also see. It's much only an issue. I'm not sure if we have created something, but otherwise we can go and create. I'm still not recollecting what was the issue actually. Issue was the event reason in what you say. Even reason in the country region we go and give event reason like higher and other options. We could only give one event reason. Let me take something back. Data morning in progress. And let me take first. We go to manage data. What was the position which we created? Any? We will recall that also. I think the plus sign didn't work. The plus sign is not working. But anyway we will. But in the real time able to do. I don't know why it is there in the camera system. It's I added company event reason salutation. We can take. Last time we created something. Is. Can you search the names? But I think that is already created. I think. Then what was the issue? Is the issue was related to employee is being done. Then the session will be recording and you can practice. But if it is not done, then we can go and create. But it should not be the double case. If you can see, probably we can go into that employee data. That's not a problem. This is already created. I think you have the old recordings also because I don't have that link to check. If you have the old recordings, can you keep it mute and can you check what was the last session? What was the last closing session topic will be completed. Meanwhile, I will wait for the while. Can you check? And if it is completed, then we go with a new topic. This is what we did it last year. We can continue with a position creation and hiring. We have done that is a third method, right? Add new employee. Foundation object creation and NDF object creation. We have done. Hiring also add new employee. We have done. XML part. Also we have seen from the data model. Data model. We have not seen, right? MXL means working in the provisioning. I have to download it. How do you use it? Right. After completing this up to here, what we have done for the foundation MDF and for the HR data, we have seen how to create a records both for the F, OMNDF and HR data to add new employee functionality also. Right. Now we will go and see the second scenario where how these objects are defined. When you go into manage of your pay structure, you will be going into the location group and you will be creating the records, right? There you will be finding certain fields. When I go into manage of your pay structure, when I go here, when I take a location, when I take any of the foundation objects, and when I take a record from here, you can see certain fields are there, right? These are certain fields are there. For creating this, we have these fields available in the manage of the pay structure. But this object and fields from where it is coming for foundation object, that is coming from the provisioning from the place called data model. We have around total 7 data models. Let me take you into the data model. I will go back into my Excel. Is my Excel visible or not? Please let me know. I just moved my screen into Excel. Is my Excel visible? Let me unshare it and let me share it again. Just give me a moment. Let me unshare it. Total in the success factor in the provisioning system. When we discuss about the employee central, we have total 7 data models. This data model helps us to maintain the configuration from the backend system. Whatever the functionalities of features which we are seeing in the front end, that is due to the configuration which has been maintained from the provision. Coming into the employee related, what you call foundation means organization, structure and employee data. The configuration which we are maintaining, it is from the provisioning. Here we have total 7 data models. Data model help us to maintain the configuration which is related to the organization structure as well as the employee data. The first and foremost data model which we are using for maintaining the organization structure is the corporate data model. Corporate data model. It defines the objects and the fields of the foundation objects. When we discuss about foundation objects, what foundation objects it specifies? It specifies the objects and the fields of the which are there in the foundation objects. When you go here, you can see this is the foundation object. These all are foundation objects that you are seeing here. Each foundation object will be having some standard fields or the custom fields. From where these objects and fields are coming? It is coming from the corporate data model. That is the first data model. It defines the objects and field for the foundation object. That is related to the corporate data model. Whenever we are into the implementing this application, the first and foremost thing is to work on these data models from the provisioning to enable this data models, upload these data models into the system. Then only these locations and other foundation objects, these other foundation objects will be reflecting in the manage of the waste. If you are not imported it, this all foundation objects will not be reflected. The first and foremost thing is the corporate data model. Second thing, the another part of the corporate data model is a country-specific corporate data. What is the difference between a corporate data model and a country-specific corporate data model? Country-specific defines the object and the field for a specific to a particular country. And when you are defining any object and field in the corporate data model, it specifies applicable to all countries, not specific to a particular country. For example, now, if you are going here, I'm still taking a location. I'm taking a location and in the location, I'm taking the country as UAE. Whatever the fields which are showing here, location, name, description, status, location, group, time zone, all these fields will be applicable to all other countries also by default. It is not specific to UAE. It is applicable to all other countries because the reason is that is being defined in the corporate data model. That is defined it in the corporate data model. Country specific means, suppose in country specific, if I'm going and defining a particular field here, extra field, custom field. And when I choose UAE, that field will automatically populate here. But when I'm choosing other countries, that field will not be populated. It indicates that field is configured in the country specific corporate data model, not in the corporate data model. Understood the difference between a country specific corporate data model. That will be changing according to the country here. Now when I'm going here, you can see here it is a mandatory field country. Right. There are a lot of countries are showing here. If it is specific, the corporate data model, country specific corporate data model where you are adding some specific field, when you select the country from here, that field will be populated. But for other countries, that field is not populated. That's how you are defining your. We are defining it in the corporate countries specific corporate data model. That is the difference. Succession data model means, first of all, it is an employee related data model. Employee related means now employee profile. I'm not sure it is open or not. In Santoshai Kumar employee profile, can you see here personal information? These are the sections, right? Personal information, biographic, nationality, ID, all these are the sections which are showing, right? Every section will be having a subsection and every subsection will be having a portlet. This is called as a portlet and each portlet will be having standard as well as custom fields. These fields which you're seeing, salutation, first name, middle name, last name which you're seeing, or if I'm going into biographic information, person ID, country of birth, bad ID, this you are seeing. All these things from where it is coming from? The succession data model. From the succession data model, that is from here. Defines the section and the field which is showing in the employee profile. That is the HR model. Success countries. Specific succession data model means if I go into, suppose, job information in this job, information in the job information, whatever fields which you're seeing here, these fields are routing from which data model? On the succession data model. But if I want to, for instance, if I'm going back here and if I'm taking an employee who is basically from a particular country called France or Germany, when I open that employee profile, then I can see an additional field for that employee. But for any other employees, many other countries, that will not be showing. Then that field is being configured from the country's specific succession data model. Got? Understood? The difference between the succession data model and that country-specific succession data model. Any field or anything which is particularly belongs to a specific country or a region, we are going with country-specific succession data model. But if you are defining any field or object in succession, means by default it is applicable to all countries. Whichever employee has been hired in whichever country, in that employee profile, that field will be visible. Understood? That is the difference between a succession and a country. Source. Why I highlighted all these 4 parts? Because the reason is that although we have a 7 data model, but currently we are using actively only 4 data model. It means that there is a dependency still with the 4 data models. If you need to change anything from if any changes is required in the front end. Suppose if I want to make something for the corporate data model or a country specific or succession or country specific, I need to go into the code building and I have to work on this particular data model, downloading that data model. Because those options are still not available in the front end. That is the reason that dependency is still there in the code building. Remaining 3 data models, that is propagation data model, workflow data model, and event reason derivation data model. These data models are not required right now. They are outdated. The reason is that we have another feature where we can maintain the configuration in the front end only, rather maintaining it from the provisioning. Because of that, we are not using propagation, data model, workflow, and event reason because their configuration is already been maintained in the front end. Now we had a feature in the front end, means SAP recommends that we should not maintain the configuration at both the ends like front end and back end. Either you maintain it at a front end or you maintain at a back end. Both areas we cannot able to maintain the configuration. Because of that, these 3 data models we are not using because they are the configurations are already been maintained in the front end. But coming into the top 4, those configurations are still been having that dependency from the provisioning. That is the reason whenever we require some changes in the front end, we have to go into the back end for these 4 data models. Is it clear? Any question? The last 3 can be done in the front end. Last 3 can be done in the front end. And there are 2. There are 2 ways. Either you can maintain the entire configuration in the back end, or when we have a feature in the front end, we can maintain the configuration in the same feature in the front end system. If you are maintaining it in the front end, we are not using these data models. Now recently in the month of November, that is last release, SAP SuccessFactors last release happened in 2TH 2022. In that release, what they have done, they have decided to deprecate, means totally delete this event, reason, derivation data model from the provisioning because we are already maintaining the configuration in the front end system. They decided to totally remove this data model from the provisioning. Now from January onwards, we don't have the option also for maintaining the event, reason derivation from the back end. Everything will be maintained in the front end system. Coming to the propagation and the workflow, they have not migrated. They have not deleted these data models, but still a lot of customers have migrated the configuration from the back end to the front end system. That is the reason they are now maintaining all the configuration for these 2 data models also from the front end. We are not using these data models for any of the customer. But in the future releases, it can also happen how it has happened in event reason that they will plan for deleting, removing totally from the back end because there is no dependency. Everything can be maintained from the front end system. Got it? In the interviews, they will ask you, what is the data model? How many type of data models are there? Data model is a tool in the provisioning where we are able to maintain the configuration for organization structure as well as for the improvement. For that, we are using this data model total. We have 7 data models. Out of that, we are using only 4 data models. Even 3 data models, there is no dependency. We are maintaining it in the front end. And the difference between each data model that I explained to you, corporate data model and a country-specific corporate and a succession and a country-specific succession. Now, in each data model, we have a code. We call as an XML code. These XML code has already been created and defined by SAP. You don't have to create or develop any new code. Already, the code will be there in each data model. Whenever we want to work on any of the data model, what we need to do, we have to download the XML. When we download the XML, that is the XML code. When we download the XML, we can open that code and whatever is a modification or changes which is required, we can able to do the changes and the modification for those codes by downloading those XMLs. In those codes, the configuration is already defined. And that can be downloaded from the provisioning. We are downloading it, the XML code. After downloading it, we are working on the XML code. And after that, we need to import back into the system. When we import back into the system, whatever changes which we are importing, that changes will be reflecting in the front. This is the way it goes on for each data model. For example, if I'm just downloading the corporate data model, when I'm downloading the corporate data model, I have a location. I'm adding some field here. I'm adding some custom field. When I'm adding some custom field, I'm importing that particular XN. After saving it, I can come to the front end system. I can see that particular field is reflecting on now. In this way, we can able to do the testing model. Coming to the foundation part, defining the objects and the field for the foundation. That is the standard one because that is already been defined in the XML code, which XML code for the corporate data. From there only we can see in the code all these fields we can able to see. Once you downloaded it, once you work on it, once we are importing it, we can see the changes here in the front end system. When you are defining or when you are seeing that what are the objects which has been, what are the fields, how the fields are defined in the XML means you can see each fields are there. They have the label also. Can you see the label, right? We have the what are the things which we can see labeled. We can see some fields are mandatory also, right? We can see length of the field, right? This box is the length of the field, right? Each box, you can see either you can name character, numeric, special character. And you can see the length of the field. Some field length. Some box will be in small length. Some box will be much more length. That all is being configured and maintained from the XML. Now you can see here, these are the standards fields just showing here. Here below that if you want to maintain a custom field, also if customer comes and says that for this foundation object I want an additional field. Where do you configure? We will not configure from the front end. Front end, this place is only to create a record. When they want to create a record, They want a new field. For that, you have to go into the XML and we have to download that XML, add that field and save it and then import it. After importing it, I can see that particular field will be reflecting on. XML is a place where you can able to handle and maintain the foundation object as well as the foundation object fields. Any questions here? Also, when you are discussing about the foundation object, that is the corporate data model, right? Here, whatever the objects and the fields are showing, that is due to because this is already being defined and maintained in the corporate data model, right? What are the other things you can see? Location and the legal entity, right? These are also two objects, and you can see there is a relationship between the two objects that we call as an association. This association, also these object association is also maintained from the closure. You will not be able to show us the editing. Coming to that only. When we come here into the corporate data model and into the country's specific corporate data model, see earlier, there was even now also for other data models, we don't have any option because we cannot able to access the provisioning. Provisioning can only be accessible if SAP gives an approval with reference to the customer which you are working. Suppose you are being onboarded to a project and you are handling a customer, you have to send a request to the SAP to give the provisioning access for that customer. Then only you can able to work on the provisioning side. But what SAP has done? In the year 2021, SAP came across with one feature which they introduced, one feature for the front-end system. From the front-end system, now what happens? We have an option that is corporate data model under country's specific corporate data model. These two options are available in the front end where we can able to download the XML. And after downloading the XML, we can able to see what is the configuration setup which has been there at this point of time. Now we have two options. Either you can go from the provisioning or we can go from the front end for the corporate data model and the country's specific corporate data. But succession data model for countries specific data model, we don't have any option to download XML. If you're working on the XML, we need to go from the provisioning. Is it clear? Now, as I told you, each data model will be having some XML codes that we need to download. That XML code is a vertical, is a functionality. Whenever you are working on MS Word, Excel, PowerPoint, these are something which is coming from the MS Office. If MS Office is already installed in your laptop, you can work on the Excel and you can work on the Word documents. Similarly, like I told you for the MS Office, we have the options for XML. If you want to download the XML, after downloading the XML, if you want to open that XML will only open under the XML editors. XML editors, under XML editor only it will be opened. we need to install the XML editors on the Play Store. Either we can look on. There are free version also and there are certain licensed version. If you're already working with a separate partner company, you can request to your IT administrator that you require these XML editors. Then what they will do, they take approval of your line manager and they will try to do the installation in your laptop. But if you're not with a separate partner company, you can go and download that editor as a free version, trial version. And there are certain XMLs, one XML per editor. One is Oxygen XML editor. One is Notepad++ editor. These are some editors we can able to park on. And download the free version. If you are working with a company and then you can raise a request to them, they will install it in your laptop. Without the XLs, you cannot open the XML codes. Is it clear? Basically, we can use Notepad++. That is a free download. You can check with if it is a free download. That editor is free download, then you can. After downloading, you have to right click on that file and you can open with if it is showing. Let me go into the folder. When I go here, I will go to the data models and in the data models, because here you can see I have downloaded the XL. After downloading the XML, we look like I have to click on this. Right click on this and I have to go with open with. When I go with open with, can you see XML pad, right? We have similarly for Oxygen XML editor or Notepad. We will find this option after installation. Then we need to, what do you call it? Open it. How we will download it? That I will show you from the front end. I will go here. And I will at least center. I will go to the tools here. Can you see here foundation of the configuration? These two options. Now it is reflecting. This came into the existence in the year 2021 October release. They introduced this option. Otherwise, this option is still. It doesn't mean that this option is now. It is there. It has been. The XML has been removed from the provision. No XML will be there in the provision, but we have the option to update it from the front end. We can able to. Similarly, it will show like that only input, export corporate data model. Input, export country, region, country specific XML data corporate data model. Then you have a specific country, region, succession data model. Similarly, succession data model. We'll click on here. And when it opens the screen, I have to X. You can see import and export. Two options are there, right? Click on the export option and click on export. Now what I will do, I will just go into is my folder visible. I will go into the downloads. This is this one. I think this one, right? And I will copy this. I will go to and what is the date today? No, I'm just testing it. This is the original one which you're seeing here. You should always make a practice that we should not override the original one. This is the original means this is the actual one which you downloaded. Just Control C and just create a Control B. Create a copy of it. That if anything went wrong from your end also, you should have A. If you want to remove the changes, you should have the original one as a backup. Got. What I will do. I will mention this 25323. Original will be there and whatever the changes I'm doing, I will be doing it in the copy version. I will click on this. I click on this open with and just go with the XML file. Meanwhile, when it opens here, whatever the fields which you're seeing for the objects that will be showing in here when the XML opens, you can see mainly there. These are the two tabs which we focus on source and the table view. When it opens by default, it will open under the source where you have two screens. One screen is here and one screen, you can see it here. When you come into this main screen, you can see the corporate data model and the file name with the date because we have changed the file name right. We have just created a copy of it and renamed it. That name will be reflected. What is this actually? This is the company ID. How we will find the company ID? As I told you, you can go here and we can show version history and we can see the company ID. But, right. When you go here, you can see 49729. Always, you can see the first one is the company ID, then the corporate data model and whatever the file name which you are specifying. From line number 7. When you come line number 5, it will start from line number 7 onwards. You can see it starts showing the HRIS element, right? It's showing the HRIS element. What is this S element? When I go back into the system, when I go back here, you can see every foundation object in XML we called as the foundation objects and the field we call as HRS element and HS field. This part which you are seeing here, this is HRIS element. In the front end, we are seeing what we call foundation object. The same thing we are seeing in the back end as HRIS element. Don't get confused. That HRIS element is nothing but the foundation object. Here you can see, all these are the HRIS element which is there in the XML. When you open one HRIS element that is foundation object, you can see these fields are there, right? These fields are called HRIS field. We have HS element and HRIS field in the XML. Now, when I go back here, when we go into the actually from line number 7, the HRIS element, it starts. When you go and see the first foundation object, what is the name of the foundation object here? Location group, right? When I go here, let me take location group. When you go into the location group, you can see these are the fields, right? Location group, group name, description, status, location. These are the HRIS fields. And then you have a foundation of that is HRIS element. HS element as well as the S field. How it will show here? Here it will show HRIS element, right? Every foundation object, that is the HRIS element, every foundation object is again divided into the ID and the label. Now you're seeing the first foundation object. The first foundation object, it is divided into, each foundation object is divided into ID and label. When you go here, the ID is equal to location group and you can see the label. In the front end means here in the front end, you will only see the label part, not the ID. Whatever changes which we are making in the label, that will be reflecting in the front end system, that is in the manager of the page structure. Got it? And SAP has recommended that we should not. We should never change the ID name of the ID. That is the standard one. That is by default. It is coming by standard. If you want to make the changes, you can make the changes in the label part, not the ID. Element is divided into two parts. One is ID and one is label. Now coming into the label, the first part. What is the label which we are seeing? That is the label which we are seeing is the English text, right? Location group. Below that you can also see there are translations, right? In other languages, this translation by default it is coming. If you are making some changes, if you're creating some new object, new field or something, then only you will update that particular label. Otherwise, it is not required. And also one more thing. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.